So moving on, in this video, we are going to look at what is a find element and what's the difference between find element and find elements, right? So in the previous videos, we already used the find element method to identify our web elements while we are looking at some of the WebDriver commands, right? So what is find element? It is a method which is used to identify a web element within a page. It returns a single web element which matches the locator strategy. Right now, if there are multiple elements which match the same locator, it will only return the first element, right? So please make note of that. It will not return you the desired element. You need to change your locator strategy in order to get the right element if there are multiple elements with the same locator which you have provided. Now, find elements, it is also used to identify web elements, but in this case, it will return you a list of all the web elements which are present in the page and which match your locator, right? So that's the difference, main difference between find element and find elements. Find element only provides you a single web element, whereas find elements provides you a list of web elements, right? So depending on your scenario, you should be using either of these. Now coming to the syntax, this is the syntax of find element. So first you pass the browser driver object, then you call the find element method, right? So it's a WebDriver method. Then you give kind of locator strategy here, and then you perform some operation, right? So coming to more details inside this, so driver is a browser driver object, right, of a particular browser. Find element is a WebDriver method, and it accepts this locator as a parameter. So inside the locator, you have this by class, right, which provides you a mechanism to locate elements in a web page. And then this by class also is a combination of the locator type, right? So there could be different locator types, like in this case it is ID, but it could be a class name, it could be a tag name, or it could be a name, right? So there are several locators. We'll look at them one by one in our next videos. Now inside this, we also have the locator value. So when it goes to the web page and it searches for this ID, right, or the locator type, it also combines it with a value so that it can search that particular element uniquely within the web page, right? So you need to always make sure that this locator type and value are actually unique for your web element. Otherwise, there will be duplication, and your Selenium, your scripts may fail, right? Now, after this, the operation which you want to perform on this particular element. So in this case, we are clicking on this submit element, which may be a button, right? But these operations could vary depending on your scenarios again. So this is a kind of brief description about how the find element method is constructed and what are the different parameters involved in a find element method, right? So let's now have a look at what are the differences between find element and find elements. So as I said, find element, it only returns a single element which matches the locator. It ignores all the other elements if there are multiple elements present in the page with the same locator. Whereas find elements, it returns a list of all the matching elements, right? The next difference is when Selenium is not able to find any element with the locator which you have provided, it will return no such element exception, right? But in the case of find elements, it will just return an empty list, right? No exception will occur. The next difference is now since find elements returns a list, so each element is indexed with a number starting from 0, right? So just in the case of array, it is the same here. It's a list containing of all the elements, and then you can iterate within that list, right, using this index. But obviously, because find element only returns a single element, so it is not applicable in this method. Now these are the two syntax for find element and find elements. So we already saw the find element syntax. This is the find elements syntax. So we declare a list type here of web element, right? And then this list will contain all the elements which are identified by this particular locator strategy. So here we are using the tag name, and actually this particular line will actually give you all the links on a page, so which have a tag name A, right? So which generally indicates a link or a image. So it will actually return you all a list of all the links on your web page which have the tag name as A. So it's quite useful. Depending on the scenario, as I said, you will use either the find elements or the find element method. So this was all regarding how to use find element and find elements. So in the next section, we will look at the different locators which are present and how do you use those locators to identify your web elements on the web page.